The Immigration Minister's decision to greenlight 1,700 guest workers for jobs in Gina Rinehart's Roy Hill mine infuriated the union movement and blindsided the Prime Minister. So the plan's been hastily retrofitted with a Labor caucus committee tasked with monitoring all enterprise migration agreements. Shortly, I'll speak to the Workplace Relations Minister Bill Shorten about that. But while debate continues over the first agreement, the obvious question is how many more are in the pipeline and how many guest workers will come. Greg Hoy reports.
The dust shows little sign of settling from Gina Rinehart's historic deal with government on Friday to import 1,700 more semi-skilled workers for her new mine in the Pilbara. From Perth to the federal parliament today, the red dirt was still flying.
We've already got the riggers, the scaffolders.
Critics included Chris Sutherland. With 10,000 employees already, his company helps to hire Australian labour for resource projects.
We had to recruit about 80 workers for a mining site in the northwest. We were able to get over 3,600 applicants, and from those applicants screened to 80. So we certainly think there are more than enough workers available right now to fill most of the requirements if we can do a little bit of job-specific training to suit any particular requirements of the operation.
I think the enterprise migration agreements should be seen for what they are. It's an agreement that allows a company up to a certain level. It doesn't mean that they're going to employ this, but it just gives them that insurance, if you like, that they'll have access to skilled labour overseas if required.
The mining industry in particular, from the interests associated with Gina Rinehart, to expand the guest labour scheme as widely as they possibly can. And I think that her views about the subject are well known. That is that they ought to be able to employ people on very low rates.
Industry and government insist guest workers, as with existing 457 visas for more skilled migrant workers, must be employed on Australian wages. But there's no question many, including Gina Rinehart herself, are hoping this EMA is the first of many more migration agreements.
Whilst continuing to limit sufficient guest workers, we are not only losing or delaying projects, but creating problems for the future by putting ourselves in an unnecessarily high cost-based structure from which we will be forced to struggle to compete internationally for decades ahead.
Though the Immigration Minister's office would not divulge what else is being discussed today, it's clear from comments made publicly over the past week that it won't be long before further enterprise migration agreements are announced.
To date, we have had 4 applications for EMA. We have 4 applications, 1 fully considered, assessed and before the Minister, 3 with us at the moment.
The number of projects that meet that criteria of $2 billion or 1,500 employees is very small. There's only about 10 to 13 projects in that category. So yes, there are other enterprise migration agreement programs being considered.
The multinational Chevron Corporation would today neither confirm nor deny rumours that its Wheatstone and Gorgon gas projects off Western Australia are the next in line for such migration agreements, followed by the giant Indian GVK and Adani coal projects in Queensland. Unions are angry at the lack of transparency. Aren't unions meant to be consulted on these matters? Isn't that?
Well, that's what the EMA guidelines stipulate, but we are aware that I believe the Minister has got 3 more applications that have been made, but we're not advised as to where those applications are up to. The other comment I'd make is that the process itself is fairly opaque.
Including, it seems, for the Labor caucus, which today insisted a new committee be established to ensure priority be given to Australian workers by resource companies, echoing the Prime Minister's intervention on the weekend, promising to introduce a central jobs registry for local job seekers and tougher enforcement of regulations.
Companies won't be able to bring in foreign workers if there's an Australian ready, able and willing to do the work. And second, I'm strengthening oversight of enterprise migration agreements.
This announcement has caught unions and migration experts by surprise. Both have long called for greater market testing of availability of Australian workers, including for the closely related 457 visas that have or will bring in tens of thousands more skilled workers than will now arrive under enterprise migration agreements.
Over the past few years, the government has systematically rejected any proposals that there should be labour market testing for 457 visas sponsored by Australian employers, and then suddenly on Friday, the Prime Minister says that she now feels that Australian workers should be given an opportunity to apply for work that 457 visa holders intended to do. So if this was the case, it would be a massive change, an administrative revolution in the 457 visa regime.
And as we await the details, we're also awaiting the findings of an official investigation into alleged breaches of previous migrant worker visas raised by this program 2 months ago.
Greg Hoy reports.